To understand how America was built, we must first establish our baseline data. We begin in the year 1790, the date of the very first United States Census. At this moment of origin, the non-indigenous population of the infant nation stood at just 3.9 million people. Crucially, over 95% of this initial population trace their immediate ancestry to immigrants who arrived within the preceding 150 years, alongside hundreds of thousands of forcibly transported individuals. Without this foundational human influx, the initial labor force required to clear land, construct early colonial infrastructure, and establish the basic agricultural systems of the 13 colonies simply would not have existed. Let us trace the first massive acceleration phase from 1820 to 1860, driven by over 5 million new arrivals. During this era, Irish and German immigrants arrived to find a nation lacking basic physical connectivity. Irish labourers, fleeing the Great Famine of 1845, provided the back-breaking physical labour to excavate the 363-mile Erie Canal, which slashed transport costs by 90%, and turned New York into a global trade hub. Concurrently, German immigrants moved inward to clear and farm millions of acres in the Midwest, establishing the agricultural engine of the young republic while introducing critical educational systems like the kindergarten. Let us examine a concrete engineering feat that physically united the continent, the Transcontinental Railroad completed in 1869. The Central Pacific Railroad, laying track eastward through the treacherous Sierra Nevada mountains, faced an extreme labor shortage. To solve this, they hired over 12,000 Chinese immigrant workers. These men performed the highly dangerous work of blasting solid granite tunnels using unstable nitroglycerin and laying tracks across high desert plains. They laid up to 10 miles of track in a single day, a record unbroken to this day, completing a transport network that reduced cross-country travel from 6 months to 6 days. Now we analyse the second great industrial surge, where the scale of immigration reached unprecedented heights. Between 1880 and 1920, over 20 million immigrants, primarily from southern and eastern Europe, entered the United States through ports like Ellis Island. This massive influx of human capital directly fueled the Second Industrial Revolution. By 1910, foreign-born workers made up over 50% of the labor force in mining, steel production, and textile manufacturing. Without this continuous supply of cost-efficient, highly motivated labor, America's heavy industries could not have scaled rapidly enough to compete with European industrial empires. Beyond physical labor, we must mathematically calculate the intellectual surplus generated by immigration. Economists use patent data to track this. Historically, a 10% increase in high-skilled immigrant arrivals correlates with a 15% increase in local patenting rates. This phenomenon is driven by the immigrant innovation surplus. Immigrants represent only 14% of the US population today, yet they hold over 23% of all patents, make up 29% of the science and engineering workforce, and have secured 38% of all US Nobel Prizes in chemistry, medicine, and physics since the year 1900. At this point, we must address a critical economic fallacy, often raised by skeptics: the lump of labor fallacy. This mistaken theory assumes there is a fixed, unchanging number of jobs in an economy, meaning an immigrant worker must displace a native worker. This is mathematically false. In a dynamic market economy, immigrants are not just job seekers, they are consumer units who buy food, housing, and services, which expands aggregate demand. Furthermore, immigrants are highly entrepreneurial, founding new businesses at twice the rate of native-born citizens, thereby actively creating new employment opportunities that expand the entire economic pie. To understand modern American dominance in global technology, we look at corporate founding data. An analysis of American startups, valued at over $1 billion, reveals a striking pattern. 55% of these unicorn companies were co-founded by at least one immigrant. This includes critical structural pillars of the modern economy like Google, co-founded by Sergey Brin from Russia, and SpaceX, founded by Elon Musk from South Africa. These companies do not just generate trillions of dollars in market capitalization. They construct the fundamental digital and physical infrastructure that keeps the United States at the technological frontier of the global economy. What happens if we mathematically remove future immigration from our projections? Let us run a demographic simulation. The current fertility rate of native-born Americans sits at approximately 1.6 births per woman, well below the 2.1 replacement rate required to keep a population stable. Without immigration, the United States population would begin contracting rapidly by the year 2035. This would lead to an inverted population pyramid, where a shrinking pool of working-age taxpayers is forced to support a massive, aging retired population, quickly bankrupting social safety nets like Social Security and Medicare. Let us summarize the concrete steps that built America over the last 250 years. First, the foundational labor force that built physical infrastructure like canals and transcontinental railways. Second, the industrial labor surplus that drove coal, steel, and textile manufacturing to scale globally. Third, the high-skilled innovation loop that fuels patent production, Nobel Prizes, and over half of all major technology startup formations. The data is clear. America did not just welcome immigrants. America was physically, intellectually, and economically constructed by them. Without this continuous influx of global talent and labor, the United States as we know it would cease to function.